I had no idea the British press was so bigoted.
This One's Wife. Top 10 Terrible Behaviours of Meghan Markle. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. It is the case with any narcissist that they will engage in benign and malign manipulations. The more sophisticated narcissists maintain a facade so that their malign manipulations go on behind closed doors and with sufficient levels of control so that they are never spoken about, so that the image that narcissist projects to the world at large is not tarnished. There are other narcissists that attempt to do the same, but their ability to maintain the facade is not as sophisticated, resulting in cracks showing in it. This can be either as a consequence of the narcissist's own behaviour, for example, with this One's Wife, where we've seen her giving the baleful death stare, or the jutting jaw, or the anxious blinking. She gives herself away. It's also the case that as a consequence of the level of scrutiny that she's subjected to, caused by her overexposure, which of course is something that has been sought by her narcissism, she gets caught out in the various revisions of history that she issues. In other instances, the facade of the narcissist can be cracked as a consequence of disclosures by other people, so that some of the dark doings behind closed doors come to the fore. For instance, in relation to this One's Wife, the allegations of her bullying staff. Invariably, there is always some dark and disturbing behaviour meted out by the narcissist. There has to be, because the narcissist has no emotional empathy, no boundary recognition, operates with a sense of entitlement, has to pursue the prime aims, and in so doing, it is necessary for the narcissist to utilize a variety of different methods in their armory, some benign, often many malign, and whereby you threatening the narcissist's behavior and become painted black, the narcissist will utilize some form of malign behavior towards you. With this One's Wife being a prominent individual who has found infamy, this means that there is a long record of poor behaviours by her. Some are laughable, some invite ridicule, others cause eye-rolling, but there are a number which might be categorised as terrible behaviours. And I've selected 10 for your consideration. Let's commence the countdown. Number 10. Ostracising her father. The primary catalyst for the rift between this One's Wife and her father was apparently Thomas Markle Sr.'s staged paparazzi photographs and subsequent media interviews in the lead up to this One's Wife's wedding to Prince Harry back in 2018. This One's Wife has publicly stated that her father's actions led to their estrangement. Her father has given interviews criticising this One's Wife and her choices. The fact is that there are many that believe this ostracisation was as a consequence of the fact that not only had her father served his purpose, namely, as an appliance he was of no longer much use to this One's Wife because she'd moved on to bigger and better things, but also that he would pose a potential threat to control by potentially exposing past behaviours of this One's Wife which were at odds with the image that she was seeking to project. Accordingly, she sought to nullify the threat to control by ostracising him and claiming that it was as a consequence of his behaviour, thus blame shifting. He is a non-intimate secondary source, and it is common for those sources to be treated to the shelving dynamic. But for Thomas Markle, he has had nothing to do with his daughter for 7 years, all entirely her choice. She hasn't just left him on the shelf, she has disengaged from him, which is unusual with a secondary source, but can happen. She's disengaged from him because essentially he is no longer of any use to her by virtue of the fact that having used him to progress her career and education, she has moved on to other people that she sees as far superior and therefore has no need of him. Accordingly, notwithstanding the fact that he is her father, notwithstanding the fact that he has experienced ill health, notwithstanding the fact that he has done so many things for her in the past, she has nothing to do with him. Furthermore, Harry has never met his father-in-law, and it remains the case that it is much suspected that she has smeared her father to Harry, potentially in one of the most horrendous ways possible, to secure this control over Harry so that he doesn't want to meet Thomas Markle Sr. The fact is that irrespective of the behaviour of Thomas Markle, he has been ostracised by his daughter and now lives in ill health, unable to have any contact with her or his grandchildren. Number 9. Isolating the children. On the basis that you accept that Archie and Lily exist, they have been isolated. They are never seen playing with friends. They have little to do with their grandfather King Charles. They have nothing to do with their grandfather Thomas Markle Sr. They have nothing to do with their uncle and aunt on the Markle side. They have nothing to do with their uncle and aunt and cousins in the British royal family. They are growing up with large sections of their family kept away from them by the behaviour of this one's wife. Not only that, they are never in effect seen in the wild, only as a consequence of stage photo opportunities, some of which have resulted in considerable question marks being raised in respect of the authenticity of the images. That there are concerns about the treatment of the children as a consequence of having a narcissist mother, that it would appear that Lily is treated as the golden child, whereas Archie is treated less favourably. But irrespective of what actual treatment might be meted out as against them by their mother, what is clear and irrefutable is the fact that they have not been allowed to develop any kind of relationship with their extended family, missing out on a huge part of what it is to have a family, and not only that, to miss out on so much of a family that few people would ever experience, namely a royal one. Number 8. The bullying of Princess Charlotte. It was claimed that this one's wife bullied a child in respect of a dress fitting that took place. Information was provided from a person who explained that they had a cousin who worked within Givenchy, and that one of her best friends from work was at the fittings for this one's wife's wedding dress and the Flower Girls. The cousin had just gone on maternity leave, but essentially what this one's wife was saying in relation to her denial of bullying was regarded as lies and nonsense, for she was described as a complete diva and treated the seamstresses and Givenchy staff horribly, and was nasty to the assistant that was there to assist her. It was the case that the Givenchy staff gave this one's wife nicknames, such as the dictator Duchess-to-be, meddlesome Meghan, and Ms. Snobby. The cousin's colleagues say they're certain that this one's wife constantly treated them badly, and the end result didn't reflect the high standards of Givenchy, and this resulted in why one of the individuals that was there to assist her was let go so suddenly. With regard to Princess Charlotte, this one's wife hated having to include her as a bridesmaid, and made it quite clear, and constantly mocked and made fun of her, especially when she would arrive from home or school like any young child, a bit messy from having fun. She called her chubby and mocked her voice. The shoes were also a big issue for the Flower Girls and their parents, as they were really uncomfortable for them, but this one's wife refused to let them wear tights or even socks, and said to the Givenchy and Aquazzura staff that this was what happens when you coddle children. They turn into horrible whiny brats that want everything, when it was actually her wedding. The flower crown head wreaths were also last minute, and literally had Princess Charlotte told, just as she got out of the car, that which one was hers, and it was quickly fitted as best as possible. she was singled out for criticism, whilst her friend's daughter Ivy was singled out as the special one and was called the mini maid of honour, which is why she didn't have a flower crown head wreath or her own bouquet, as this one's wife had made it clear to all the other girls that the friend's daughter was the special one. It was the case that her abusive behaviour made Catherine cry, but of course in typical narcissist fashion, this one's wife spun it around to suggest that she was the victim and that she had been made to cry by Catherine. The fact is, the evidence that has been provided supports the suggestion that she bullied a young child with abusive behaviours of name-calling and mockery. Number 7. The bullying of staff. The bullying theme continues with allegations that this one's wife bullied staff in Australia by throwing hot tea over somebody as a consequence of the fact that she was not given the entirety of a building to stay in whilst on a royal tour. That she bullied staff in the United Kingdom, which resulted in an inquiry by the palace, a report being produced which has never been disclosed, and various members of staff claiming that she engaged in bullying behaviour, resulting in the concerns raised by Jason Knorf. Furthermore, the Hollywood Reporter disclosed details of this one's wife's bullying in the workplace in the United States, and it would appear that the narcissist has repeatedly engaged in bullying behaviours as a means of asserting control over individuals. She's been described as a dictator in high heels who made a grown man be reduced to tears. That she contacts people at 5 a.m. issuing diktats through emails. That she regards it as not her job to mollycoddle people, and that just because they can't handle her directness doesn't mean that she ought to change. 3 times, at least, she has been accused of bullying staff, and it is something that has not gone away. Number 6. Posting the rings back to Trevor Engelson. This one's wife was married to Trevor Engelson. It was her first marriage, although there are some that suggest that it was her second. The marriage ended when this one's wife disengaged from him. This was as a consequence of the fact that she was moving in circles in Toronto, and therefore Trevor Engelson was less useful to her. As part of ending the relationship, she callously returned both her engagement and wedding rings to Trevor Engelson by registered post after their separation. This unconventional act was recorded in Andrew Morton's book, This One's Wife, a Hollywood Princess, and is reported to have been a swift end to their marriage. The FedEx envelope was delivered to Trevor's home, and inside was the diamond engagement ring and her wedding ring. There was no note provided. It was a harsh and demeaning and belittling response by this one's wife to triangulate Trevor Engelson with the rings by sending them back with no accompanying note, in a manner whereby she was clearly dismissing him and disengaging him, without any due consideration for his feelings. Number 5. Lying about cooperation with finding freedom. This one's wife is a pathological liar, and there are lots of lies that one might choose for the purposes of her terrible moments. But one stands out in particular, whereby she was accused of misleading a court about her involvement with the biography Finding Freedom, written by Omid Scobie and Carolyn Durant. This one's wife initially claimed she did not provide information to the authors, but then later admitted to authorising her aide to brief them. In 2021, during her legal battle with the Mail on Sunday, this one's wife apologised to the court for their oversight, stating she had forgotten about the aide's actions. The court accepted her apology, but many individuals saw this as a barefaced lie that would actually hold her in contempt of court. She maintained that it was a minor memory lapse rather than intentional deceit, but she was portrayed as dishonest and an individual that in effect had misled the court in pursuit of her own interests. Number 4. being a yacht girl. A perpetual rumour that has circulated around this one's wife for a number of years is that she had a career as a yacht girl, where in effect, in exchange for money, she entertained men with the provision of sexual services. Often rumoured that this was how she had met Prince Andrew before she'd even met Prince Harry. There is no direct evidence that supports this rumour. Much of it is apocryphal, with reports of people who had worked on yachts themselves claiming that they knew her from their own involvement on such yachts, and she was there also. Is it one of those rumours that just has strength as a consequence of repetition, or is there actual substance with regard to it? If it's believed, then the fact that she earned a living this way, then sought to have that erased from the internet, as is often suggested, and then essentially utilised a similar modus operandi to ensnare Prince Harry, could well see it regarded as a terrible act. Number 3. The griefghoul. This one's wife has faced merited criticism as a consequence of her appearance at the Uvalde Memorial following the mass shooting of children when she had no connection to the area, and she posed in front of the memorial being filmed and photographed. She also attempted to enter areas which she would not ordinarily be granted access to, resulting in further criticism as she sought to utilise the tragedy of others for her own self-promotion. She doubled down on such behaviour in respect of the Californian wildfires, where she was seen engaging in yet more photo opportunities and accessing areas of the fire-ravaged city that people ordinarily would not be admitted to, demonstrating that she sought out preferential treatment. Rather than do so anonymously, she ensured that she was photographed and filmed hugging an employee of hers, and was later seen doling out supplies as part of the relief effort. The fact that on at least 2 occasions she has sought to make self-promotional headway out of the tragedy of others clearly demonstrates a terrible act on her behalf. Number 2. The fake pregnancies. Sometimes referred to as a conspiracy theory, in other aspects, something that many people believe is the case, that this one's wife faked one or both of her purported pregnancies. A bone of bitter contention between opposing camps in relation to this one's wife, and spans various instances of supposed deception, ranging from the use of a moon bump, which allegedly could be heard snapping and could be seen falling down, the presentation of a doll as Archie, and more recently the release of the infamous twerking video, which caused many people to speculate that that clearly did not show a pregnant this one's wife. A multitude of what many people will say was deceptive practices. Ordinarily, if it was the case that she had utilised a surrogate, nobody would bat an eyelid, but as you know, the problem lies with regard to the children needing to be born of her body to be part of the line of succession. And also, of course, the narcissistic need to make it look like she is the mother. There are those that believe that she did give birth. There are those that believe that she didn't give birth, but the children were born of a surrogate. And there are those that believe the children don't exist. Whatever the belief might well be, there are sufficient people who believe that she engaged in chicanery and deceptive practices with regard to the pregnancies, which is made all the worse as a consequence of the necessity of legitimacy for the line of succession, and for her to engage in seeking to dupe so many people, including the royal family, points to a particularly terrible behaviour. Number 1. The mocking curtsy. Filmed for the self-indulgent series Harry and This One's Wife, This One's Wife was seen in the Netflix series talking about how she greeted Queen Elizabeth II, a queen who had been on the throne for nearly 70 years at that point, who had given her entire life to service, an individual who was much respected throughout the world as a consequence of her calm manner and dedication to public service. A lady who was in her dotage, a lady who later went on to lose her husband and indeed found her last months being tormented by the behaviour of this one's wife. The filming took place around the time of the death of Prince Philip and the illness of the late Queen. And not only was the behaviour a blatant show of disrespect for a monarch who was much respected, it was also seen as additionally distasteful given the timing of the filming in relation to the personal difficulties of the Queen and Prince Philip. The fact that she thought she was so amusing and engaging in this mocking curtsy that she felt able to have this filmed and later transmitted shows a complete callousness and an absence of regard for those affected by it. The fact that she chose a target that couldn't answer back because by virtue of the date of transmission of the programme, Philip and, more importantly, the Queen had both died. A self-indulgent, nasty behaviour, and surely ranks as the most terrible act of this one's wife. Well, there you have 10 terrible acts of this one's wife. Do you agree with the selections that I have made? Do you think there are ones that have been omitted that would merit being in the top 10? Do you agree with the order, or would you change it? Well, whatever you think, whether you agree or disagree, think other things should be included, let me know in the comments section, and I'd be interested to learn of your top 10 terrible moments of this one's wife. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.